Okay, this is a STEDI Rally Bar install video for the Ford Ranger, Everest and Raptor PX2, PX3. So we'll start by lifting the bonnets, and there is this black radiator support. It's a cover for the support. So there are a number of clips that go along here and 2 screws on the 2-litre engine. So we'll just start by popping all those. A simple flat blade screwdriver will suffice. They're really easy to get up. Just get them up, and a small twist. You might have to go around a couple of times. Small twist screwdriver will get in there, and this final clip. Just work your way around them. Try not to break them. So over this side, this is a couple of Torx head screws. There is a flat blade slot. The flat blade screwdriver will also work. So this plastic panel has a couple of clips that attach to the grille. So the easiest way to get those is to slip your arm on the back. They'll start to clip, and you'll feel them on the back there, and they'll just pop up. So you just push your finger or your thumb onto it. They sound like they're breaking, but they're not. There we go. So we can just put that out of the way at the moment. So easiest way to get this type of grille out, the Wild Track is slightly different. It does go a bit lower, but it's a similar sort of process. So most Ford grills just have 4 bolts holding them in. They're just a 10mm head. So the longest extension bar here, but I'll show you that in a sec. Deep down next to a few components in here, you can see it, not in the camera at the moment, but you will need a long extension bar. A little bit dark down there, but I'll show you once the grille's off. So the Everest has a couple of horns, 1 per side. You might just have to loosen that, just get out of the way so you can get your hand down to get that bolt out. So that's the long bolt. Horn on the other side. So top of the grill, there's a couple little dowels and bits of plastic just holding that. So just pop each one of those, and if you wiggle the bottom of the grill, a little bit of rubber holding it in, but you can just get your hand on it. So the Raptor grill has the 4 bolts. The Everest has a few tabs holding the bottom edge of the grill in, which I'll show you in a sec. So these little female slots here is what every one of these males click into. So you just need to press down from behind with a screwdriver. So on here, we need to remove this little splash cover here. So this cover has 4 little Torx head bolts holding it in. It's a T25 fitting. So any Allen key with that size on it. They're not very tight. And this will just simply slide straight out. And put this aside. Inside we've got the tube section, that'll go on last. We've got the two structural plates, like so, and then the 2 projection plates which will bolt on with an adjustable height. So what we'll start with is these plates. So there is a particular way they go in. They need to twist into place so you don't damage the intercooler, the fins on the intercooler. However, we'll just put them aside for the moment. So we'll just put this tube aside. And right down underneath the tube section is the lower radiator support. So this will bolt right underneath on that lower radiator support panel, and it will pick up our brackets like this. So it is designed to use all existing holes. There are a couple of clips where we need to place our bolts. So up the top, we'll just squeeze that and just pop that out of the way. This one here, the back end of a screwdriver, we'll wiggle that one out. So you won't need to drill at all for this install. And down the bottom, there is an 8mm head bolt holding the plastic section in. So it's the bolt that holds the bottom of this plastic section. So we'll need those in a second. So you'll offer this plate in. And just pop this bit of plastic out for the moment, because we'll need to put the plate in behind that plastic. So you want this plate touching hard up against the metal, and then the bolt will sandwich this plastic up against our brackets back into that lower radiator support. The bolts are well and truly long enough. So you just need to line that up, make sure it's sandwiched. And that will self-locate, and you just need to do it all the way up. So just go the same tightness as what it was to undo. And then in our bolt kit, there are numerous 8mm cap screw bolts. There are 4 hex head bolts, and there are 4 M6 cap screw bolts, and washers and nylock nuts. So I've got them all together here just for easy showing. However, we'll start with the 2 of the M6. So the bracket that has our STEDI branding on it is the right-hand side of the vehicle, so on the Australian driver's side. So you can start with whichever side suits best. However, as I mentioned before, you don't want to damage the intercooler fins, so there is a little bit of a tricky way to get it in. So you actually start with it like this, you thread it down, keep it toward the plastic, you don't want to touch this intercooler, and just spin it right around. And then you can rest the top of this on the intercooler, and we've given a couple mil of clearance, so you can just slide it straight in and lift it straight up. So you'll see there's 3 holes here. However, you only need the 2 on this one here. Make sure that that little cable is backed off, and then we'll lift that straight up there and we'll pop the bolts through. So make sure there's a washer on both sides. Make sure the bracket is sitting on top of the lower radiator supports bracket, and that should locate it perfectly. The lower bolts are the M8s with the hex head. It's got the hex head because you'll never see it, and it makes it easier to tighten everything down. So make sure there's a washer behind the bolt head and a washer underneath the nut. So we'll go over to the other side. So same, it does slightly squeeze in there, but I wouldn't suggest it. So just go straight down like this, twist it around in place. You can drop right down till it touches the intercooler and it will just slot straight under. So this one, you'll use the 2 outer holes because this hole is further away than the other side was. So just make sure that bonnet release cable is out of the way. Grab your other 2 M6 bolts. Lift that up into place. Make sure the bracket is on top of the other bracket. The holes are slotted for any variants in these cars. Make sure they're finger tight. And then the hex head bolts on the bottom. So all your bolts will need to be tightened up, and then we'll move to the next step. So we just want to tighten up all the remaining bolts now, and we'll get this nice and firm onto both the upper and lower radiator support. So you'll just need to thread a 10mm spanner in the back. A ratchet spanner does help, and it makes the job quicker, but don't use any power tools. This is stainless hardware, so you don't want it to lock on itself. We do recommend using lubrication on the bolts and the nuts. They're nylock, so there's no need to use any Loctite, but just make sure you do it up by hand. On the bottom, you'll need 2 13mm spanners. Two 13mm spanners. It's a hex head bolt and a nylock nut. Plates where these sandwich together with the bolts should line up, so make sure they line up when you're doing that final tighten down, and that'll make sure the vertical bracket is perpendicular to the intercooler and the radiator support, so you don't want that off on an angle. So tighten that up, other side now. There's plenty of room to get your hand in here. Do them up nice and tight. So there's one more component to go across here. So on the bottom, we've got the 2 bolts per side with the plate running across the bottom of the radiator support. So that bottom is now extremely strong. This top could still have a little bit of flex. So what we've done, we've put a bit of a boomerang plate across here, and that will make that one firm box structure. So we'll put this on now. So this boomerang piece will drop straight on there. Easiest way is to put the branding on this side. It can go on this side, but it gets a little bit difficult to get your tools in there at a later date. So we'll put the branding on this side. So you'll need 4 M8 cap screw bolts. And just drop them through from the top. We can tighten these bolts down now. So you'll just need, you can use a ratchet spanner again. Just makes life a little bit easier. Okay, this is now one solid frame, of which we'll have our extension supports coming out through the grill, and that's where we attach the tube out in front of the grill. So these extension plates, you'll see that they're mirrored and they're long slotted holes on the plate and drilled holes on the bracket. So depending on the grill, you might have a custom Ford grill, an Everest grill, a Raptor grill, or a normal Ranger grill. You have not infinite adjustment, however you do have enough adjustment to suit the majority of grills. So this will actually bolt to the side here. So you'll put 1 bolt in one of the holes, wherever it will line up, on the front, and you'll use 2 holes on the side. So once all 3 bolts are in, this will become one structure, but you'll need to figure out this height here with the grill that you have. So with this Ford Everest grill, we'll need a measurement in between 290. We can use the Ford emblem on this grill as a center line. So you can pull a center line across, but we'll need 290 mil between the minimum cut and 350 mil between the maximum cut. And on this grill, it means that this section here, and we need 30 mil of height for our extension bracket to come through there, and the width of this, we need the clearance for that and any movement between the two. So with this, I've just put masking tape to show the cuts. So we want to cut on the inside of this masking tape. Take the vertical sections out, so we just remove that little section there. Once this extension plate is installed and the grill is back and the tube is in front, you won't see the cut anymore. And then when you put lights on it, or aerial or any other accessories, you won't see this cut anymore. So you can use any tools you have at hand, whatever you're most comfortable with. In this video, we just want to show that something as simple as a hacksaw blade, you don't need any super tailored tools, but a hacksaw holder would be handy. But yeah, I'll just show that something as simple as a normal little hacksaw blade will do. So it is an extremely DIY job, and we can just take your time. We can start by doing the top. Just take your time. The plastic's really soft. So just make sure this grill is painted. So what we want to do is completely miss that painted section. So what you could do, if you're not comfortable enough to cut all the way up to the edge, you can cut it in there and then use a file and just take back that extra plastic. So that drops through. And try and get this cut straight. I'll have to go from the bottom. An alternative is, if your blade is too big, we can just snip with some wire cutters. So I'm just leaving a bit extra material there, and then we can cut that back to the tape section. Of course, if you want, you can remove the entire section, so you don't leave these sections here hanging out without support. It won't hinder anything. They're quite strong. However, if you want, you can take it all the way back. So as long as they're cut all the way, and then this section can come through, pivot around, and it will sit approximately in that location. So just remove the tape when you're done. We can offer the grill back to the vehicle because we need to set the height of the extension plates. So we'll just sit that back there. You don't want to click the bottom all the way in, because then you'll need to do the whole uninstallation with the grill again. So we'll just rest the top onto those little dowels. Leave the bottom free. And then we'll need to thread these through, figure out which hole we're going to use for the top and the sides, and then we'll mirror that across to the other side. So once the grill's in place, you'll have approximately 10 mil of clearance here and 10 mil of clearance here to the bonnet latch cover. I'll probably lift up this side. Make sure you don't touch the intercooler. We'll get that through and we'll just spin that around so it's up the correct way. We can rest that there. We'll get a bolt in just to hold it in place. So this is where you might need flexible hands. If your hands or wrists are too big, you might have to get a friend to help you. So that's one bolt started. So once it comes through and it's tight, that's exactly how it'll sit. So you can see the cut will come right up. There's clearance on either side. Once it's straight and the tube's here, you won't see any of that cut. So we'll get the other two bolts here. So you'll slide the bolt up and down the slot on the bracket until it drops into a hole, and that's where it will want to sit. And the third bolt goes on to the front. This one's a little bit more tricky to get to. And then we do the same for the other side. So make sure the bottom of the grill isn't clicked into place, because we just want it to come out. Maneuver it into place. And then spin that back around into the vertical position, and then you pop the other three bolts in. So just click the top of the grill in, because we want to get these brackets plumb and in their correct position, so we can do up the bolts. So once you have the bolts started, the 3 bolts per arm started, easiest way to tighten them up, it is tight in there. Ford doesn't leave us a great deal of room, particularly with the larger intercooler, to get any tools in there. But just make sure the grill is not clicked into place, but sitting in position, because we want that height to be correct for these extension pieces. So the easiest way to get in there is with the Allen key, obviously on the cap screw bolt head, and a medium size ratchet with a extension bar or a long socket. So this will need to swing past. You don't have a great deal of swing room. Again, please don't run it into the intercooler. We don't want to damage any of the fins there. However, we want to get enough swing in there to tighten up the nut. So we'll just put the Allen key into place, probably from the bottom, but easiest way with this lower grill opening, we can come up from the bottom and tighten up those 2 side bolts there. So we can get our hands up into place, get the Allen key on. If you're talented enough, you can probably get the Allen key on from the top. And just carefully start swinging the ratchet. Be careful not to hit anything in there. It might be tempting to use a power tool, but again, please don't use a power tool on these bolts. Okay, so there's a little bit of a trick here. Now they are set in their height, we can actually unclip the top of the grill, because we want to get to the front bolts, and we can just slide that grill out and it will sit on those little extension pieces, and you can see these front bolts with plenty of room to get in there. So this one, you actually need a spanner. The intercooler is, or a shorter socket. The intercooler is in the way. In this case, I'll use a spanner. All right, that is now one structure, extremely strong to the car. So, easiest way is to just push the grill back, because we're at the final stages of the install now, and we want everything to locate and click back into place. So you might need to slightly manipulate the grill into place, click that one into place, click the bottom of the grill back in, that there. So the last part of the process, other than putting the car back together, is to install the tube section. So once you've got everything tight, the grill's back into place, we'll put the bolts back in a sec, but let's get this plastic off and get it onto the car. So of course you could set up all your clamps and lights, U-brackets, whatever you want on the bench first. But in this case, we're just showing how to get this onto the car. So you'll see that obviously these are fixed position. These do have a little bit of movement. So what we're going to do is the light bracket needs to go on the inside of these extension plates. So we'll get a bolt started. So once they're started, we just want to run the nuts down the bolts and then we'll straighten the tube up. And then we'll just tweak the angle of the tube. So side on, the top of the tube is horizontal to the ground. Once that's tight, we can put all the items that we've taken off back into their respective positions. So all the nuts and bolts you're holding in the STEDI jumper. And go back into place. And then we'll push these clips back into place, into their holes on the front grille. Just push down. Put these two Torx head bolts back in. Tighten them up in a sec. These little clips, little heads are back out and you just push. And the last one back into place.